Will the Neil Armstrong biopic First Man finally launch Ryan Gosling to that first Oscar win?
Or will Damien Chazelle's methodical, slow pacing get in the way of his nomination? Damien Chazelle has directed two extraordinary films with Whiplash and La La Land. Of course, he won the big award for director for La La Land. And now he helms First Man, starring Ryan Gosling as Neil Armstrong, Claire Foy as Mrs. Armstrong, Kyle Chandler, and Jason Clarke. This film is a very intimate portrait of Neil Armstrong, and it takes you from the days of him having kids to him getting accepted into the Gemini program and on to the moon landing. And of course, I think that what's best communicated by this film is that no matter how many struggles and obstacles one can encounter, one can still get up and continue on with determination in order to achieve some goals. And that is what really hits home in this film.
Yeah, it's your typical Chazelle movie such as Whiplash and La La Land, where you have this highly determined protagonist overcoming immense odds and obstacles to reach his goal.
That's right. You know, like in the case of Whiplash, you have, of course, this kid really trying to make it into this band and him having to deal with this abusive, you know, teacher. And then in the case of La La Land, of course, you have these two, you know, dreamers that are trying to make it in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But this movie, I thought, really had some powerful, jolting scenes, man. Like, this was a visceral experience for me. The movie opens with this trial run, if you will, where the Armstrong character, played by Ryan Gosling, is like, you know, doing a test run outside of the Earth's atmosphere, and you could really feel the sound and the tension and the vibrations of the camera.
From the very beginning.
Yeah, it really does. A great opening sequence, and there's some really nice framing. Like there's some very intimate portrayals done by close-ups at the beginning of the movie of Armstrong with his daughter and his family. And I don't want to give too much away, but
we'll get to that later.
Yeah, but the way that the movie ends is also in a very intimate way. And I think that, you know, that clearly is Chazelle making a statement about the importance of family and ultimately the value of family, and how that is really what drives Armstrong to do all of the, you know, decisions that he does along the way.
It's a movie highly predicated on his character. Obviously, you know, it's First Man, so yeah, that's what you're gonna get with this movie.
So Lenny, earlier we mentioned that, you know, Chazelle's directing is very methodical, and so I want to talk a little bit about his attention to details, which I think gives this movie its edge, you know? Like, there are scenes where there are funerals or, you know, parties or gatherings, even during some of the launching scenes. It's just the way that the camera really tells a story without any words or even any acting, just by showing you objects around, and it gives just the scenes a very personal and intimate feel to them. I think that his ability to do close-ups of not just the characters but just the surroundings and showing you the what we call the mise-en-scène. You know, the mise-en-scène, the fancy term for just the scene,
composition,
to still be able to tell a really human story at the same time, so you can appreciate just the style of his filmmaking, but at the same time he doesn't lose focus of telling a very human story, you know?
Right, and you know, if you want to talk about a lot of this direction, okay, some people will look at it and say, wow, the cinematography is excellent, right? But that comes also from good direction. And so this guy absolutely should be getting nominated for an Oscar for Best Director, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think so.
And going back to what you were saying, he does a really good job of showing and not telling, right?
Yes.
We always talk about that.
Yes, and he's maturing clearly as a director from his previous two films.
Yeah, like for example, there's a scene in a doorway where they're talking about someone's death, right? And it's, you know, the camera is framed in the doorway, it's backed off a little bit, there's silhouettes there, so that really adds to the mood of the movie. You know, the director's tone is super present there, so that's just one of many shots. There's a shot in a bedroom where there's, you know, someone's missing in the bedroom, and so they show that empty bed. There's so many of these scenes.
There's one that sticks out where he's walking, Armstrong is walking outside with his best friend.
Oh, the swing.
Yes, Yes, and man, there's some great lighting in that scene. It's at night, but it's during this scene where he's having this, you know, deep internal struggle because of a loss that he experienced in his life. It's beautifully shot.
In the middle of the movie, you know, I turned to Beth and I said, this light work and this everything, the direction is outstanding.
Top notch, yeah.
I absolutely don't want to forget to give credit to Linus Sandgren, who's the cinematographer on this movie.
Yep. Who won an Oscar for La La Land.
Yeah,
by
that's
the way.
right. And you could totally see it in this movie. Well deserved. He hasn't missed a step in this movie. Specifically the scene, I really love the launch scene, man. It was probably one of the best launch scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
Yes, not to mention just the entire journey to the moon, and when they're approaching the moon, oh man, that scene gave me chills when they were approaching the moon and they finally land on it.
Yeah, because we all know that he goes to the moon, right? But it's approaching the climax, so you have to have this camera work and these moments that really build up to that, right? So starting with the launch, okay? You have close-up scenes, you have these nice, you know, pulled back kind of panoramic scenes of the launch, different angles. You have inside the not the cockpit, but inside the rocket.
Yeah, all sorts of different perspectives.
Right. You see what they do very well in this movie is you see through the window, and it gives you a real nice first-person perspective.
Yep.
And
of what the characters are experiencing, what they're feeling. Absolutely.
Yeah, and then you go to the moon landing, right?
Yeah.
And they did this masterfully. Even though it gave me a headache, I love the fact that they kind of disoriented you because they wanted you to feel how the astronauts felt.
Of course.
By showing you all these different inverted angles that were, you know, upside down, you know, sideways, like you weren't.
Right.
Yeah,
so you were experiencing exactly what the astronauts were experiencing. Absolutely.
Yeah, we could go on and on about Linus, but wow.
To add on to what you're saying, the sound editing and the sound mixing in this movie
apparent from the beginning.
Absolutely gripping and commanding, and the musical score, I have to say it's probably the most memorable musical score I've heard all year.
All year?
Yes, I can't think of another musical score. Maybe perhaps Black Klansman a little bit, but this one had a really eclectic soundtrack that really matched the moods and the scenes.
Yes, it was very purposeful sound.
Absolutely.
And another thing that's purposeful about it is that they knew when to have loud sound, when to have like rickety sounds, and when to have silence, for example, in space. Now, one thing I don't want to forget to mention is the camera shake, which at times was purposeful in that it built tension and anxiety, but at the same time, I kind of felt like they overdid it, and there were some scenes where I was like, okay, you don't need the camera shake here, okay? It's contributing to my headache, by the way.
So this is a film that features a strong and stellar supporting cast, in my opinion, but man, Gosling and Foy, I feel, give indelible performances as two parents stricken by grief, and they really take that in different directions. And of course, the movie deals with how they navigate their relationship as a couple, but also their relationships as parents, as friends, and I think that it does a good job in all of those areas, for sure.
Well, I'm glad you think they did a good job, because I don't think they did that much of a good job in terms of writing the characters. I mean, I understand that Neil Armstrong was a private individual, he was a stoic person, and you know, Ryan Gosling was the perfect actor to portray a stoic character, because we all know he's had some stoic performances. But
oh yeah? I think he did really well with this role.
No, I'm saying like he did well in portraying him, but it wasn't like a moving performance for me.
But what about those launch scenes where he's like, you can really feel it?
I could do that. I could. Look,
you could do that?
Look, ready?
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I mean,
yeah, see?
There were some. No, man, there were some really good, intimate scenes here that were vulnerable. I felt. I disagree.
Okay.
I highly disagree.
It just wasn't exciting for me, I guess. You know, it didn't.
And what about
really,
Foy?
I was not moved.
What about Mrs. Armstrong?
Okay, yes. To me, she gave a better acting performance.
She had grit.
Yeah, well, maybe that's the way her character was written. You know, the first hour of the movie had maybe 2 emotional moments for me, and then her character gained steam, I thought, throughout the movie. So one weakness I thought in this movie, as far as characterization, was they had Ryan Gosling having these flashbacks, right, to a death that he had experienced, and to me,
throughout the movie,
I kind of felt like I needed more of a yes, he cried and you know whatnot, but I wanted more reaction. I wanted to see more how it affected his actions.
I loved those scenes. I really did.
I just felt like, okay, here's a flashback, there's a little reaction, and then we moved on with the plot.
And I think that it's so realistic the way that he remembers those mourning flashbacks, if you will, I guess, during these pivotal and alarming scenes that he's facing. I think that was very, I don't know, I really like the way that the juxtapose those
Right.
those
It
scenes.
made sense, right?
But like you wanted more from him.
The writing writing made sense, but I wanted more from him, you know? Because I felt like the dialogue was a little stale most of the time throughout the movie, other than Foy's, you know, her moments, her dramatic moments. I kind of felt because the dialogue didn't really do much for me, that I felt like the relationships among the characters was a little hollow.
If I had to point out a weakness in the film, I would agree with that, because the movie at times feels like almost like a series or a list of just documented events,
right,
and it loses some of its like heart.
My rating for this movie is going to be 4 reels out of 5, okay? Okay, what, were you gonna say something?
No.
Okay. I know what you're gonna do, but I give it 4 reels out of 5, okay? There were pros and cons for me, and let me tell you, I thought this movie was slow, okay? I thought the first hour, I even timed it, I thought it was boring.
It was not boring.
It was boring. It had two emotional moments, and then after that, finally, I was like, okay, it's starting to, you know, ramp up a little bit.
It was once again methodically slow. Not boring.
That's a euphemism.
Okay, no, finish your thought.
But what saved it for me was the artistic approach to this movie. Oh my goodness. I would watch it again just to pick up more of that. You know, more of the camera work, more of the directing, more of the, like you said, the visual storytelling.
Film technique wise, top notch. I would disagree that this movie is boring. It is definitely, you know, slow. It does take its time, but I appreciated that it left some room to really take it all in and absorb every little moment that I thought was very, again, you know, intimate, and the camera really, you know, stays close to the characters a lot of the time, which is something that I felt made this film different from some of Chazelle's previous works. I would give this movie 4.5 reels.
I knew it. We're always 1.5 reels away.
This is a beautiful film, really beautiful to look at.
So that's our real take on The First Man, guys. Comment down below if you agree with me and you're like, okay, it took me forever to wake up to this movie, or if you agree with Beto,
or is it beautiful to look at, and is it riveting with these characters and their portrayal of these real life people?
Okay, yeah, let us know, and as always, guys, follow us on Facebook. We are at Real Screeners, and as always, thank you to the Alamo Draft House for fantastic service.
That's
beautiful
right.
movies every single week.
If you love our videos, hit that subscribe button and that bell button, and we hope to see you soon for more Real Take on Movies.
Will the Neil Armstrong biopic First Man finally launch Ron God's long and gone, but that's gone. I was so excited for that one too. Okay. All right, here we go.
Goslong.
Ron
Goslong. Ron Goslong. This film is a very intimate portrait of Neil Armstrong, and it takes you from the days of him having kids with his wife to getting a person.